There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being back with us for a fascinating panel which is in preparation with a very interesting cast. On this side of the camera you have Waldorf and Stettler, the two grumpy guys from the Moderations at the Luxembourg Internet Days. And on the other side of the camera you see all those little pictures. We have Särav from Bolt, we have Maya Horowitz from Checkpoint, we have Myriam Djerouni, we have Pascal Geenens from Radware, and Bruno Schroder from Microsoft. Now, a quick one on the panel. Those who have followed the preceding panels already know that we have decided this year to put the Luxembourg Internet Days into a kind of completely invented, I agree, crisis scenario, having a number of repercussions into economics, into strategy, into policy, etc., etc., and obviously also into each of the domains of the 6 subjects which we will be talking about, among which this afternoon cybersecurity. So you may have seen the main crisis scenario. You have received an email with the, I would say, cybersecurity relevant part of the story. So a first round of questions, reactions to the panel. Any one of you wants to react to the questions, to what the scenario is kind of shaking you, telling you? It's always difficult to be the first one.
I'd be happy to be the first one.
Okay, go.
Yeah, I was wondering which part is fiction actually in your scenario.
Okay.
Except for the names. The names are clearly invented, but whatever you put in that scenario, I think that we saw it all roll out already. Even up to the bad guys giving money to charity from a ransom campaign. Did see that ICS
talked about that one, Pascal.
So.
Any other reaction from any other member of the panel?
What to expect from us?
I just want to hear from you whether you have run into those questions which we have asked, or what your reaction is to those questions which are raised. Like, one of the questions is, would you think that in cybersecurity, moving away from the networks into manual reboot processes or restart processes, etc., which exist in some industries. In the US, for example, they exist in the power distribution industry. Is that an element which would help in cybersecurity, in counter attack measures?
Don't be shy.
Maybe I can have a few words on that. Of course, the manual reboot is a concept that you can find interesting, but given the way the infrastructure are managed now, without automation, it will be possible to even think about it. With the time that you would need to have a human intervention in there, it will be too late already. So it might be a last resource, like it happened in Estonia, when they physically had to cut the internet cable into the country. But if it is your main way of reaction, I mean, there are quite a number of things must happen before, in fact, and you would be very much better off relying on AI, dedicated machine learning, and an excellent telemetry setup on your network to react instead of accounting on that.
It's true, Bruno.
So,
it was not meant to be. It was not meant to be kind of the safety brake or security brake. But once the attack is behind you, or you are processing on the attack, would a manual process or a manual procedure be something which you conceivably would see as being part of an remediation?
Oh, so looking at a number of events where I've been, indeed, manual action, manual reboot was always needed at a moment or another. And so I remember some of the cases where the the infrastructure has been infiltrated for 4 years, so it was impossible to do anything without manual intervention in there. And looking also at the kind of best practice that you would have if you've been subject to a long attack, and if you have all reasons to think that your infrastructure has been deeply compromised, you need to have a way to reboot that is completely different from the normal way of operation of your infrastructure. Because if you reuse any kind of component of your normal operation, you are more likely to reinfect yourself or to reopen the door than you would be. So I think it's a good practice to have a completely distinct rebooting procedure. Now, that being manual or not, that's another question. But yes, I can definitely think that some manual element will take into account. But the key element will be that it's completely different from the new one. If possible, avoiding any kind of component that are used in the normal operation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say for a short.
Go ahead.
For a short period of time, I would agree, but on the longer term, this would never scale, because if you have to operate everything manually, how are you going to monitor the systems? At some point, there has to be some automation in there. So I think that when to your point of using more autonomous systems, like autonomous cars that are driving, you can use the same for the systems that are ICS systems and have them run autonomously. And also, if you look at what's happening, if you are under attack and you go manual, who's going to do that manual intervention? It's like the postal office today. If everybody reverts tomorrow to sending invoices by mail and sending contracts by mail, the post will be flooded and nothing will arrive anymore. So I think that the same will happen with our infrastructure. We are built around that automation today. So we need to find a solution that either automates it better, keep it scalable, or secure it the way it's supposed to be secured.
So for punctual elements, if I understand you correctly, Pascal, for punctual elements we would be ready, but today our infrastructures are not built anymore to cope with manual resets or to cope with everything which manual resets will mean down the line.
Right, and that's why for some of the critical infrastructure, it's important to know in advance what you do in case there's such an attack. And especially in this scenario when so many different elements are attacked at the same time, if you now have to start thinking, what are we going to do with each and every one of them? It's going to take ages, and with all the trouble of the attack itself, it's almost impossible to sit quietly and decide. So it needs to be done beforehand, getting ready for all these scenarios.
I agree with you, and it becomes the more complex if the scenario is not a purely cyber one, but it starts being or is a cyber physical one, or when the physical component adds to the purely cyber component.
Yeah, and it's not some fantasy. We're seeing these types of attacks, obviously, today on critical infrastructure. I'm based in Israel. We've had some of those just in the last couple of months, and so definitely it's part of reality nowadays.
I agree with you, Maya, but and I agree also with Bruno and Pascal, we need some level of automation, of course, especially in those cases. But where do we draw the line when safety and security are crossing in critical infrastructure? Well, this automation could lead to collateral damage, meaning people dying.
Yeah, I think that should be the question. How much can we do manually these days? Exactly, as you say, we might end up with people dead, right? Because we're so much dependent on these aspects that we don't know a parallel life anymore. I mean, I come from Estonia, right? So we say that 99% of our public services are available online. But the trick is we have parallel systems. All the public service systems we have available parallelly physically. It's just that no one uses them physically, and probably none of the people would know how to use this. But if it's just public services we're talking about, I think you're fine without, your digital prescription for one day, and you can switch over to physical one. But I mean, when we talk about hospitals precisely, how do they manage? Like how do we manage without technology?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I'm afraid if we use forms of automation that it will go wrong as well. And if there are attacks from this scale, there's always politics involved as well. How are we going to cope with that? Who is going to decide that we disconnect the country? A computer or a politician?
I'd say politicians are not skilled enough to do that.
Yeah, if I add something, yes, it's true
Myriam.
regarding this. Sorry, at the beginning I had a sound issue, but yes, I'm totally agree with you. Who makes a decision to cut a country? For sure, it's the politics. But the fact that we are in situations that we increase our dependency regarding system, regarding IT, and we increase also our exposition regarding to different kind of services. We have now the IT landscape has changed because we are more and more in cloud, more and more open. With the mobility, we are everywhere now. But it's a fact, it's a need, yes, it's a new situation. And with this situation, we are more exposed because now your security level is not just within your premise, between your four walls, it's outside also. It means that all the clouds, different services, all your endpoints are different entrance within your infrastructure. So we are definitively more vulnerable. And this because, so basically, yes, we increase our exposition, we increase our dependency, and so basically it's an imperative, we need to increase our security level. And with security, when you have an important increase like you mentioned, which is realistic, we need, in crisis scenario, when you have an important incident like that, you have to make both things. So first of all, you have to contain very quickly the attack, but in parallel, yes, you still have need to deliver your services. So it means that you are in degraded mode, and yes, in degraded, it means that yes, so back to manual until yes, you eradicate and you recover your system. So yes, we are dependent on IT, and that's why we need at different level, but not only IT and not only a technical point of view, but at different level, we need to prepare to this risk, because yes, this risk now we see an important increase of attack. It's happened. It's really happened. So we have to prepare that, and not only at IT level, but at different level, including political, because also all country, we are all dependent and all interconnect. So it's important that to raise this. So it's not only cybersecurity, it's not only an IT.
No, that's true. And I like an answer from all of you. I agree with what Myriam said and what the other panelists have mentioned. There is a political and a technology and a social aspect in these kind of attacks, that's for sure. But what if this kind of attack becomes a cyber weapon of your state number one enemy used in a warfare campaign? How would we then react? What could be a possibility, or how do you see things evolving in that matter? Because for the moment we only speak about cyber criminals, but we know that there's more behind it.
You mean
I'm
that
not speaking
different
about
kind of
cyber
attacker?
Sorry, Maya, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking about nation-state attacks, and when I mentioned that it's realistic and we're experiencing it nowadays, I mean, allegedly between Israel and Iran, there's a cyber war going on. I mean, Iran allegedly tried to raise the chlorine level in Israeli water facilities, So that's life and death, and that's the cyber war, where it translates from the bits and the bytes to the physical reality. So it's definitely something realistic, and something that's already not futuristic, but today's reality. Yeah.
Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was a reality for my country already back in 2007, right? But I think the biggest problem is how attributable these attacks are. So for Estonia, I mean, we had the series of DDoS attacks, the systems were down, but Estonia didn't fight back, or we didn't attack back, because, while years later, everyone claims that this is one specific country, and we try to attribute this to this one specific country. At the time, when you have, when you don't have the smoking gun in the hand of the perpetrator, you don't know for sure who is behind the attack, then it's very difficult to do counter attacks. Of course, if it's a hybrid type of attack, the physical, like Maya mentioned, the physical in combination with the cyber, then it's much easier. But I think for countries like Estonia or in our region, if it's not clearly attributable, then we are at a disadvantaged situation.
Yeah, that's a good point, I think. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, I fully agree with Sandra on that point. Attribution has always been hard in those kinds of attacks. And it wouldn't be the first time that we see a misattribution that comes a couple of years later, that comes to the surface. So, yeah, just retaliating like that is a bad idea, because, yeah, that's what the whole nuclear treaty is about, right? So I think that the cyber needs to have a similar treaty, because everybody has the capability today to perform such devastating cyber attacks. We know that. It's just that nobody did it at a large scale. As Maya already mentioned, they are doing some smaller attacks, and they do it little by little. But imagine that they just let go everything that they have at the same time. That would be devastating. I'm sure they can already do it now. They have the capabilities.
Yeah, but we know from warfare that guerrilla, and that's little by little, in my opinion, is more difficult to beat.
Yeah, but that is the whole point. So typically you won't do it little by little. But if you say that you're gonna have a global attack and global warfare, there's nothing that can stop it. So a treaty is the only way. It's like a Cold War right now, where everybody is demonstrating what they would be able to do. It's just an example, and instilling fear and making sure that the other one knows, if you attack me, I can retaliate because I have the capability to do the same.
Yeah, good point.
So it's a Cold War at some point.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Bruno.
No, there was a string of strange events where the electrical grid just collapsed in a number of cities, and it was kind of sequenced, not at the same time, and it looked, when you looked at it from the outside, it looked like some kind of test campaign that we would do with a kind of attack that you were preparing, and you were testing on small scale scenario. But when you look at also at what's happening now, of course we can think about a cyber attack in the kind of category as a war with a physical attack and physical impact. But when you look at the impact that the election of the wrong president can have on the status of a country, or on the influence of a country in the world, honestly, it's far more efficient, in fact, to just collapse the internal working of your opponent than do some kind of physical damage to it. Of course, you can shut down the electrical grid, cause damages, get people killed in hospitals because there is no electrical power available at the moment. But if you just cripple the democratic process, the decision process, like we see now with campaigns that are not focused on creating damages, but focused that are targeting schism in society, and whose objective is to increase the gap and the divide between different groups of society. In fact, it's a much more efficient way of waging war than it was. So personally, I think we should be much more worried of these kind of things, which we know are happening at the moment, which are easier to do, and which, well, do not issue any kind of public image on the international scene with that. and will not create any kind of backlash in your own population. If you kill innocent people, you will always have a part of your population that will react. If the other country is just crumbling under its inefficiency, well, no one will care about in your country. So, let's say from a political stance, it's way easier to do it this way.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's.
So now, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, ladies.
Yeah. Yes, sorry. So it's now just regarding, security, incident security management, because now we know that it can happen. The likelihood is high. So an important step within the crisis management is the preparation. So the question now is how we can prepare to this situation, because yes, it's happened, and at different level, at your company level, at national level, and also at European level. For example, I know that the European every 2 years make some, stress test for each sector. It's an important way to test the efficiency and the preparedness of your crisis scenario. But we have also to prepare and to invest in security, because we have the material, we have the plenty of guidelines, we have plenty of information, but there is an important I speak at the company level. It's we have an issue. We must provide sufficient resource to the security to give them a correct weapon to fight that, because the risk is real, and we have to invest in by resource. I mean tools, I mean human, and also time. And for me, these three parameters are mandatory and work together. I mean, to fight, it's not only having an expensive tool. You need, if you think like that, basically you waste your money. You need also to invest in people, in human, because human will configure your tool, will configure your alert, and the alert need to be analyzed, because it's the detection. It's important step within the cybersecurity. How the way you detect, how the way you protect your information, your infrastructure, and all that need also time, and the preparation needs time also. So we need tools for sure, but also human and time. And at a human level, the findings that we can have now, there is a lack of security expert, a lack of security skills for the moment, and we need this. And it's maybe an issue that we have to fix very quickly, because like we mentioned before, we rely on IT system, we are dependent, we are exposed, and we need to cover this issue.
Yeah, sure.
That's very true. Myriam, two things on that one. Number one is, where do you think the awareness is in society about the risk that every single one of us can be either a victim of an attack or a vector of an attack, number one. And number two is, how important in threat intelligence, that is knowing who your enemy is not really knowing who your enemy is, but what the mindset of your enemy is. How important is it to understand exactly how the people tick on the other side of the keyboard?
Yes, regarding the mindset of the attacker, they have different kind of motivation. You can have motivation like fun, and you can have activist, steal money, and so on. And depending of the motivation, they find the capability. So, for example, if it's just a motivation for fun, act for fun, yes, there are small capabilities. It's just skip kidding, or you take a code on GitHub, and okay. So this, for a security point of view, we can and we'll have to easily mitigate. But for those, we have other motivation, like activist, politic motivation, and so on. These they have the capabilities, and so it means that they can break your infrastructure. So that's why we need this preparation to mitigate the risk. So when I said mitigate the risk, it not means that we can avoid the risk, because the risk zero does not exist. It's just that we can limit the damage and contain very quickly, limit the damage, and go back to the recovery phase. So just to answer to the regarding the motivation. Your first point was regarding the user. Sorry to repeat.
The awareness. How far do you think is the awareness today in the general public that everyone can become a victim one way or another?
Yeah.
Or that everyone can become a vector? Like my computer could become part of a botnet, my video cam can become part of a botnet or something like that. So I can unwillingly become a vector.
Maybe Sandra wanted to answer on that. Yeah. Please go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly jump in a way that, what you asked, I think bigger and bigger number of the population is becoming digitally skilled, but we are becoming digitally skilled in one area and not the other, right? So my grandmother uses a phone, a smartwatch, a smart tablet. They have a computer at home, but I mean, she knows as much as being cyber aware as much as I've told her, right? So she actually doesn't have this awareness, or this awareness isn't raised amongst the entire population. This awareness is raised amongst the government official, IT companies, and perhaps younger kids at school. But the more that we expand the digital skill spectrum, the more people that we want to get on the internet, the more actually we create this threat as well, right? So if we leave this gap in creating awareness amongst these people, then we do create the problem ourselves as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if I can add something regarding the awareness, from my point of view, it's important to add cybersecurity. In school, because it's a part of our day-to-day basis also as a consumer, because everybody use, like you mentioned, yes, everybody is connected, so we need to aware people about, for example, about their rights. So it's the case thanks to the GDPR, it starts to say people about the right of their data, but also the right as a citizen, because we also see a lot of harassment and so on online, and it's also punishable. So it's important, from my opinion, to add this at school level, technical, but also how the way we use cyber IT as a consumer. It's important for me.
Bruno wanted to add something.
Yes, we have numbers about that. In fact, so on Windows you can use the Microsoft malware removal tool or the Microsoft tools, and if you tick the right box, we get a summary of the scan of the PC that is made. So roughly speaking, on a yearly basis, we're getting something like 700 million of these reports. So it's probably the best statistical tool on the state of security on PCs. And we noticed that over the years, and I'm talking here on a very long trend, there are constant base of something like 17, 18% of the PCs that are never protected. You have a few percent, 6, 7% that are sometimes protected, but 17 or 18% are never protected at all, in fact. And so it fluctuates now between the countries. Luxembourg is at 16, other countries with a much less level of awareness are at 21, 22, so we're already there. But so basically, that the market for people looking indeed for a botnet is about 1 on 5 PC. And then, but that's, well, you could think that this is at home PC, but we know that it's not only at home, that's one part. The other part, which is, I think, even more worrying, so we have our cloud services, they are used by many organizations, and we offer a multi-factor authentication in our cloud services. And when you look at the statistics of who uses multi-factor authentication in our cloud services, we have, well, all on your share, we have less than 8% of the administrators of our customers that are using multi-factor on that. Less than 8%. And we're talking about the cloud, the technology that is in use in many organizations, and in every discussion when you start talking about the cloud, I mean, they ask about the security and they ask about multi-factor.
Sure.
And so although it's extremely easy, they just don't do it. 92% of the sysadmin of our customers do not implement multi-factor authentication.
No, but
So that's
you point out a real problem.
That we see.
We speak a lot about awareness, and myself, I've been involved since 2004 in awareness. What I see is there's not a lack of awareness, there is a lack of adoption. The willingness to adopt or to change is not there between or amongst humans. And we can call it also, there is a knowing and doing gap. We know it's bad, but we don't do anything against it. It's like people who smoke. They know they will die eventually from it, but they don't stop smoking. We have the same issue in cybersecurity, and I don't have any answer to that.
I agree, and I think that the more we adopt technology and the more we become reliant on technology, the more we still need to invest in the low-tech solutions or alternatives and understand that we don't become dependent on the technology. In other words, I mean, I'm talking about awareness and education. You know, we all do, I assume we all do, you know, fire drills, whether it's at work or, you know, in school, we do a fire drill. We know if there's a fire or an earthquake or, you know, a flood, what should we do? Where should we go? What's the solution? But we don't talk enough about, you know, if there's no internet, how do I, you know, tell someone when I'm going to pick them up? Maybe I have a lock to my apartment that's, you know, IoT connected and I'm locked at home. Maybe there's some medical device that won't operate. So how do we, I mean, so in some workplaces, yes, there's, you know, there is the fallback, there is the plan, but for individuals, there is nothing. We don't really plan for that. We don't even think about it. So maybe we should. Maybe, you know, once a year there should be a no internet day.
Yeah, maybe.
Not really without internet, but you know, this is the day when you need to plan. Like, what does your family do if there is no internet? How does your house operate?
Yeah.
There are probably people listening to us, Maya, who on the no internet day will see how their kids have grown up.
We had a project where one of the bosses said, Koen, you need to shut off, this was early days, 2000 something, you need to shut off the proxy servers at least 30 minutes a week, just to do what you were saying, Maya, the no internet period. But and they did that for a while, but they created too much havoc, so they stopped. But I think it's a good initiative. I support it. Anyone else? Some comment on that? The how to cope with no internet.
Well, I was born the same year as.
Yeah, not all at once.
Sorry, sound is very bad. So
Pascal, you can start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you were asking how to cope without internet, but I see it more, so the whole problem, security has always been a shared responsibility, and I think a lot of people are just getting aware of that part of the whole piece or the whole puzzle, right? So we didn't grow up knowing that we are part of that problem that's out there. Just to give you the example about multi-factor, the president of one of the largest nations, his password was MAGA 2020. It was hacked in 5 attempts by a Dutch hacker. I am sorry, but if the most influential Twitter account doesn't have multi-factor authentication and has a password that is guessable in 5 attempts, we can hardly speak about awareness or about sharing the responsibility, right? So there needs to be a responsibility share there. And we saw it on Twitter multiple times, like People who had their accounts breached, not always through passwords, but there's other ways to breach them. You can pay off an employee, get inside, and then you use Elon's Twitter to say, oh, hey, I'm doubling every Bitcoin that you are giving to me. So send me all your Bitcoins on this account. Yeah, and then you have the people that are not aware that this might happen as a scam, who just go for it and who click on it and put Bitcoin in that account. So yeah, we all need to be much better aware, and I think that it starts also with the government making promotion and giving some small sample and clips about this is what can happen in the real world. You can be scammed out there just the same way that you can be scammed physically. You can be scammed by cyber, and people are not 100% aware about that yet. We will never solve the problem, however. I don't think that there is a magic button that will solve that problem or a magic technology that will ever solve it if we don't take our own responsibility.
That's very true, Pascal, and I think the only thing which you can do in that context, there is effectively no magic bullet, is that you can try to have a high level of awareness in the population at every level of responsibility. And that's the only way you can isolate the remaining risks or risk elements, which, as we heard from Bruno, 17 to 20% not running for security at all, etc., etc. So you have to isolate them some way. And the way to isolate is through creating extremely high levels of awareness all around them.
Yeah, well, it's not only isolating. You need to be aware of it, and you need to take it into account in your risk profile. Whenever you do risk management, you know that there's always a certain percentage of risk that you will not be able to contain and even to mitigate as it comes into your country and into your company, which is like somebody getting paid off and giving his access to a criminal. How do you mitigate that? How do you build that into your risk? Into your mitigation profile? You cannot. So you have to take that into account as a risk. So that is part of your risk profile. And talking to awareness, I can tell you how many modems are being attacked right now. So if you have a modem at home, every 2 minutes, that modem is getting attacked and somebody's trying to infect it with a vulnerability. So awareness is not always enough. There's also technology and responsibility from the people who are installing those modems, because I cannot ask my grandmother to update her firmware every 2 weeks. So there are some limitations.
You can try at least, Pascal.
With awareness. Sorry?
Yeah. Yeah,
well,
but
my grandmother is fairly good at this, so she might get away with it, but maybe somebody else's grandmother wouldn't.
Having a grandson like that, how could she be different?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's important. I would like also to jump regarding a comment, because yes, we speak about also basically IoT. Yes, it's about awareness and IoT, and IoT is also an important vector of attack. And if I make the link with you know, what we call it's with the fiction. For example, we take a concrete example regarding IoT. For example, Peacemaker. It's there is more than 7,000 vulnerability on it, and people not aware about that, but it's very an important impact, because it could lead for sure to death. And in the mind of people, it's more a fiction. It's not a reality. It's more a fiction. It's a part of yes. Yes, on Homeland, for example, there is someone who hack a pacemaker. So yes, it's more fiction, but it's in reality, and we have to fight that. We have to deal with that, and also to inform people, because IoT are in every home. We have yes, a TV connect. We have everything is connect now, and it's like we have a spy at home. And it's also important to first aware people on that, but also regarding like it's mentioned within the comment, to also yes to impose, to make some requirement regarding the IoT manufacturer, because they create something, yes, for the day-to-day basis, to yes, to make our life easier, but they also create an important breach. And it's for me, we have also to fight that and to impose at least some security requirement before they launch some product, because we can see on some internet a lot of plenty of vulnerability, and yes, we have to impose before launching a project to have a kind of TÜV certification to prove that the minimum security level are on it. And yes, it was just to add something to your comment, and also to jump to
Let me pass that comment on to the other panel members. Effectively, that was a question asked in the chat window about the security of IoT. Now let me broaden eventually the question is, are we ever going to end up having secure IoT devices out in the market? I know now again, security depends on the user, yes, but it also depends on the technology and on the design of the technology. So is secure IoT something which is conceivable, or are we speaking about something completely fantastic?
Why it's not
I think that's...
Go on. Maya, you
I
wanted
think
to say
that
something?
the answer is exactly in the question itself, in the sense that you're saying it will always rely on the user. That's the problem. It shouldn't rely on the user. And relating to what Myriam said, I mean, all the IoT devices, no one will ever patch them, update them. No way, it won't happen. They all need to be, seamless. Their security patches need to be seamless. The vendors need to take care of that for us, or otherwise, they will never be safe. And so I think that the only way, and that's the key here in making IoT, safe, is having them, having the patches installed seamlessly without us knowing. And I know that that's that's really a dream here, but we'll have to go there. And by the way, talking about IT, maybe an even greater problem is with OT, where even if you have an update and you want to patch in some systems, you just can't, because it will mean shutting down the system for the update. And so it also requires a technological solution there.
Yes, I know that with regarding our IoT, there is a regulation regarding it was more for medical device regulation, because it's also IoT, and the fact that in some industry, some sector, we are dependent, like I mentioned before, the level of dependency is important, and we are dependent of some machine. And according to this machine, we cannot update our system, because if we update our system, the machine is not work anymore. So we have a compatibility problem and so on. It means that we have, due to this dependency of some manufacturer and the tools that we need to use, but we are still out of date. Also, for example, in bank, the withdraw, the terminal, some of them still work on Windows XP. It is no more support, but yes, it's also a kind of the level of security we have. It's equal of, and it's dependent of some manufacturing that we need to perform our business. And it is also an issue, because we have some regulatory NIST directive and other that request, which is very normal, they request a good level of security. But in other hand, we are dependent to this manufacturer, and due to this, what I mentioned, we have we have breach, we have vulnerabilities, and you have also to deal with it. It's a fact that I would like to mention that yes, it's we need to have also regulation regarding that, to impose, to have yes, up to date manufacture and machine and IoT and so on. But just to back to the initial part, because we speak about awareness of the user, of the citizen. At the beginning, we speak about national, political, European some attack, and I would just to go back to this subject, because regarding the security. It's important. What's important when we have to manage a security crisis? It's important the communication and the sharing of information. And for example, like we mentioned before, we all dependent each other, and because we all are interconnected and so on. And it's important when you are we receive an attack, it's important to share this attack. We have a different platform with that. We have a MIS platform. We have also organization called ISAC, Information Sharing Association, and so on. So per sector, it's important when you have an attack to share with the other people of the sector, to share the IOC, to be able that these people can also block them, because to reduce, also to contain at your level, but also to contain the attack at the national or European level. And it's important to share that. So I would like also to raise that.
I agree with that, Myriam, but nobody does it. Let's be honest. There is ISAC within institutions, but Checkpoint can probably confirm it, and Radware can confirm it. How many of your customers allow you to expose the threat you saw at that customer and how the attack went? And the same probably goes for Microsoft or Bold or any other company. Please tell me.
If we don't want to face legal actions, we better not talk about it.
Well, I rest my case, Your Honor.
Our choice is easy.
I help you out. I help you out. I actually wanted to refer to, if we think globally, right? In some countries, more people have access to internet than they have access to basic infrastructure. Yeah. And way more people globally have access to internet than they have access to education. So, I mean, talking about IoT security or, device security, it's utopia, because much more people are actually connected than are educated. So I think it's going to be a long-standing problem.
Yeah, there's more to win in educate those people than trying to fix a problem we will never fix, right?
Well, there are some technological solutions anyway. And just to go back on the IoT side, we published a few years ago the 7 principles of a secure IoT architecture. And if you design your product according to these 7 principles, you can guarantee that you have the right level of security in there. And so we also issue a draft architecture, and so there have been boards that have been implemented, designed by partners using these 7 principles. So the problem is that of course, it does not work for the very small devices and the consumer type of devices, but we can hope with the increase in computing power and the electronics that this kind of capacity will be possible to implement on even the smaller devices. But let's say from an architecture standpoint, we know how to do that. The same, if you look at how the hyperscale cloud are protected, and so not only the Microsoft one, but the others, I mean, the level of attack that you see there against this infrastructure is gigantic. I mean, it's millions of attacks per day on that, yet they resist much better than many other kind of environment and infrastructure. So indeed, on the technological side, there are solutions that are there, but they must be continued. And so going back to the question of the multi-factor or even the use of passwords, so we started a quest at Microsoft to just get rid of the password, because we know that's the weakest point in the security of a system. So there are a number of things to do. So completely agree on the awareness, on the information. One element I would like to add is we desperately need also a legal international framework that is adapted to the internet world. At the moment, we have a number of internal treaties on the ban on weapons of mass destruction, for example. Why don't we extend this concept of weapons of mass destruction to cyber warfare that could also shut down completely a country? We have the Geneva Convention. Why couldn't we have an extension of the Geneva Convention to protect civilians in case of a civil attack? Of course,
I think Pascal already mentioned that.
Yeah. So we made the Paris call at Microsoft, so to gather organizations and countries behind these ideas of reforming national treaties, so that we have at least a legal framework that we can act upon on international level.
Yeah. In the interest of time, we need to close. I have one question. You can answer with not more than 5 words. You are leading a country. What would you do in cybersecurity? Myriam, you can start. 5 words maximum.
It's hard.
Okay,
no,
that's a good answer. Sandra, you're up next.
Raise more awareness and educate.
Okay, Maya.
Backups.
Good. Pascal.
Build a big firewall. No, I'm joking.
Go to China then. They have that.
That's already done.
Bruno.
No, I do.
I would develop the security mindset in the population. So sorry, that's 6 words. Security mindset in population. That's 4. That would be the main one.
If I hear you all, I think Myriam was right. It's hard. Thank you very much, panelists. It was really a joy to discuss these topics with you.
Thank you, and have a great time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.